I'm really quite sick today. It is the spring equinox, the first day of Aries season, the new astrological calendar, and I have been sick with a very bad cold for the last week. I can tell I'm feeling better and sounding better, but I can still hear it in my voice a little bit today. I'm doing some reflection related to being sick. I'm not used to being sick for this long. Historically, my immune system has snapped me back pretty quickly, especially when it's like a more minor illness, like a cold like this has been. But this one has just drug on and on and on. And it is simultaneously, as I'm learning more things about my health, it makes sense to me. I've mentioned this in a few of my other videos, but I've been having some chronic insomnia issues for the last couple years that have been pretty serious and really haven't responded to any other kind of intervention that I've tried. So I finally ended up doing some testing and deeper medical work with a functional medicinist to see what the heck is going on, why am I not sleeping, what's going on with my body. And the testing revealed that I am experiencing what is called HPA axis dysfunction. It is also very commonly talked about as adrenal fatigue, but from what I understand, from what the functional medicinist has told me, HPA axis dysfunction is a more accurate description of what's going on for me specifically, and maybe for others who are experiencing things like adrenal fatigue. It's not actually for me related to my adrenal glands not functioning. It's more it's the system that's not functioning. I forget what HPA stands for, but I'll put it on my screen. But it's related to the way that the brain, those parts in the brain, the pituitary gland and another part of the brain, are responding to the adrenals. And so it's how all three, it's how the body is functioning overall. And I feel fortunate from research that I've been doing into what it's like to experience this. I feel fortunate that my symptoms did not exacerbate to the extent that I see other people's have. I was bedridden as part of this, which I honestly thought was more related to grief and depression, but it's hard to separate out because those are both symptoms. They're very heavily related with HPA dysfunction. So this could be symptoms of the dysfunction, but it's also the same thing causes all of those things. So it's hard for me to suss out what's what. So I have had periods where I've been so low energy and feeling depressed enough to the point where I wasn't able to get out of bed. Those periods they didn't last for super long for me, more days at a time, whereas other people I'm seeing, it can be months at a time where people are bedridden. I'm assuming that if my symptoms perpetuated, if I didn't do anything to intervene, that's where I would be headed. Eventually, if I wasn't listening to my symptoms, my body would find a way to get me to listen. So I'm really glad and grateful that I've done some of this testing and taking steps towards the recovery process, which is a very slow process for this sort of thing. The other side of it is that it could lead to immune related issues. There's a lot of more serious things that can happen when we deny the messages that our body is telling us, which is unfortunately really easy to do in this culture, in this society. Western medicine treats everything in a very siloed lens. It's a very band-aid solution focused, symptom solution focused type of healthcare. So I previously had tried to get support through medical doctors with my sleep issues, and that didn't reveal any deeper information as to what was going on with me or what the root of some of those issues were. So unfortunately, it's we kind of have to take our own health into our own hands and do some additional sleuthing to figure out what's really going on, what's at the root of some of our health symptoms, because the medical field is not going to do that for us. So anyways, I wanted to make this video. I wanted to share my journal entry. I wanted to share some reflections that I've been having about the relationships between stress and chronic self-sacrifice and people-pleasing. And I feel this is very relevant for people who feel pulled towards being helpers professionally or otherwise. As a social worker, I think a lot of these challenges were exacerbated for me I've talked in previous videos about some toxic lessons that I was taught, that I have learned from being trained as a professional social worker, and how yeah, just the result on my body of being in a field that we're really chronically stressed and chronically exposed to a lot of trauma. We're not given tools or appropriate education of how to handle and manage those experiences. And I, in my own personal experience, am like a walking embodiment of what the consequences can be. And for me, it was a consequence of a life that I was living for other people. Social work and working with people who were in crisis and in trauma was like, they felt in a way like the realest parts of my life, in some ways that I didn't fully understand at the time. And so I really like lost myself in the realm of being wrapped up in kind of like exclusively identifying as a social worker, and like that was the main purpose of my life, was to do this work. So that, coupled with some personal experiences I've had, I will reference in this journal entry, something that I've touched on, referenced in previous videos too, which is an experience I had when I was 15 of being in a sexually abusive, sexually coercive relationship. Unfortunately, it was my first romantic relationship, and it really affected my health and development, and my development within relationships, and my development with myself in pretty toxic ways that I see all kind of contributing and linking up to this health challenge that I am now facing. So I wanted to share this because I know I'm not alone in these experiences. I know I'm not the only person who has worked in the helping profession or who is seeking to make a positive change in our world, and who feels really, really called to do that, but has also been negatively affected health-wise. And this is a big part of why I feel so passionately and strongly about how important it is for us to do this work sustainably, in a way that we are working with our system and caring for ourselves and our bodies in ways that the normative culture and Western colonial society is not going to teach us or encourage us to do. But like, we have to do that for ourselves if we want to keep doing this work, because the alternative is burnout. The alternative is like stressing ourselves to the point where we can't help anyone anymore, sometimes even ourselves. So here's what I wrote. Spring is bringing in so many shifts and subtle new growths, just like the spring before. Last night, I realized a major part of healing my relationship with myself has been cleaning out my closets, as I felt so urged to focus on a few months back, ridding myself of my own self-constructed monsters in the closet. I realized how linked this is to my original self-betrayal, the ultimate closet monster I could not bear. That's the relationship that I was mentioning when I was 15. I abandoned myself. I could not be with myself there. Chronic self-abandonment has been a theme throughout my life, seated with my upbringing and culture, socially, and what I chose with my social work, social justice, trauma proximity, and nailed into the coffin with my relational trauma. This is the first year of my life since I was a child where I have nothing to hide. Nothing to hide from the world. No toxic underpinnings in my relationships, no part of my authenticity that still feels shameful, and therefore nothing to hide from myself. When I close my eyes at night, I am reminding myself that there is no monster under the bed. Not anymore. I am, interestingly, not ironically, simultaneously being confronted with the tangible, practical consequences of this chronic self-abandonment, perpetual self-sacrifice at the altar of conformity, normality, our culture of hiding and swallowing our own shame. I have lived in chronic stress without reprieve, true radical reprieve, this whole time. Stressed to the point of insomnia in my early 20s. Binge eating and depressed and pulling on my hair before then. Pushing myself to fit the perfection cookie cutter image in college. Dumping buckets of water on my already consumed by sea head in my social work career. More, give me more of this, more crisis, more trauma, more cortisol pumping through my veins reminding me that I am alive. Because I really didn't feel alive a lot of the rest of the time. Constantly running, escaping from the checklist I carried around in my head of all the ways I wasn't measuring up, all the ways I wasn't what I was supposed to be. All the monsters mixed in with fragments of my own authentic parts, shoved into my closet with the door slammed. But the door started rattling. The monsters, and my own authenticity started gathering strength as my facade, my masked self, began losing it. In 2016, they cracked open the door, spilling out and confronting me with all that I had chronically denied. And I've been learning to meet and make friends with all of them, the monsters, the buried parts of self, since then. Because the truth is that they are one and the same, inseparable. All parts of me, the me I have come to be, which is, of course, a product of those deepest parts of self and my experiences, my history, my joys, and my traumas. To deny any of those pieces was to deny my greater whole. It was making me sick. I was on track to develop an autoimmune disorder. If I continued to deny, continued to push, continued to remain mired in the toxic stress of perfectionism, self-sacrifice, people-pleasing, saviorship, and enmeshment, I wouldn't just not be sleeping, I'd not be functioning at even deeper, bigger levels. My HPA axis dysfunction has, I now see, been growing and progressing slowly since I was a teenager, only amplified, fast-tracked, exacerbated by the high level of visceral stress that came with the intense instability, fear, grief, heartbreak, pain, and trauma of leaving Omaha, leaving all of who I was, going through a deeply traumatic 3-month-long breakup with a traumatized person in total isolation. No wonder I got sick. How could I not? This illness is a blessing. It is an invitation to turn the tide, to shift the choices I'm making, the pressures I'm placing on myself, and mostly my own relationship to myself. It is an invitation to throw my closet doors open and keep them that way. To even more deeply shed the masks, the shoulds, the impulse to abandon myself by jumping into what I anticipate the world and other people want me to be. It is a gift, an invitation to deepen my relationship with myself, my voice, my authenticity, my needs, my limits, my joys, my boundaries. To listen to my body, to listen to my hurt parts, to listen to my yeses and my nos, and to honor them as sacred, to honor myself as sacred. Never again will I keep my abusers' secrets. The people, the systems, the paradigms that have caused me harm. I don't need to judge or punish or reprimand, but I do need to honor my story, my voice, my experience. Never again will I choose the side of the oppressor by suffocating and shoving parts of my own self in the proverbial closet. And this is how I will be free. This is how I am free. We live in a culture that teaches us to suffer in silence. We live in a culture that teaches us to cling to appearing normal at all costs, to deny the hurt parts of ourselves, to deny the traumatized parts of ourselves, to deny our authenticity, to deny our truth. We live in a culture that makes us sick. We do. And when we can choose to speak our truth, when we can choose to bring light to the monsters in our closet in the ways that we can do that, as safely as we can do that, in places that are safe for us to do that, that's how we can reclaim our health. That's how we can reclaim our power. That's how we can reclaim ourselves. It's all mixed in. I don't think I got sick because of the traumas that happened to me. I think I got sick because of my own response to them and the suffocation of those parts of me. And that's hard. Like, that hurts to sit with. It hurts to recognize that the damage that I'm moving through is a result of, so my socialization and ways that I was brainwashed by popular culture and society, but also like the choices that I was making for myself. It's a lot to reckon with, to see the ways that we have hurt ourselves, the ways that I've hurt myself. And also there's power in that, because there's choice in that. I can't choose what happens to me from society, but I can choose how I respond to that. I can choose to not stay silent. I can choose to prioritize my authenticity, listen to my needs, and listen to my yeses and my nos, honor them, and care more about me, what I think, what I need, than what society, other people, anyone who's watching this might think of me. And I think that's where we take back our power. I think that's where we take back our health. And I'm feeling some of these lessons on a really deep level in a way that I never have before. I've never realized before how hard it was for me to go inside because of the things that I was hiding from my own self. And I never realized how much that was affecting my experience of being alive. So I share this to, of course, encourage all of you in your own authenticity journeys. If you're in a process of reclaiming your health, your power, your authenticity, your voice, your yeses, your nos in any capacity, I want you to know you're not alone. It is hard work. It is deep work. It is worthy work. And I believe this is the work that's going to change the world. I plan to talk more about this over time as I have more awareness and understanding of my own experience and how I got to some of the places that I did. And as I heal, I'm on a new regimen of some supplements and some hormone-related stuff to try and get me back on track physiologically. It's going to be a slow journey, as I mentioned, but I will surely keep y'all updated as we go. And I am wishing for health and wellness, peace and calm, and all of your abilities to be with yourself deeply, be with yourself vulnerably, authentically, in your wholeness, in your fracturedness, in whatever state you are. I'm wishing us all more freedom.